He brushed his bangs aside and saw his hand look totally different. He also had a mushroom cap stuck on his head. He was completely blown away. Then he saw his reflection in a puddle. He was a mushroom. He had no clue what the hell was happening. He tried to remember what happened. Last thing he knew, he was watching a Pretty Woman video. Basically, he finished himself off and woke up as a mushroom monster. Honestly, I think that beats getting hit by truck shoon any day. He complained about how he was supposed to flirt looking like this. He wanted his handsome face back right now. Suddenly, someone called out, "Brother." Our main character slowly turned around. Then he just froze. He thought he saw a gorgeous woman. He got hyped thinking there were babes even in a mushroom dungeon. He rubbed his eyes and took a closer look. Now he saw it clearly. It was just a dull, wilted mushroom standing there. This mushroom asked why he was acting so weird and saying strange things today. Xingbao realized he was just being horny. He asked what that meant and what he usually said. The mushroom told him their normal lines of dialogue. And those lines were, "Intruders, kill them," and a scream. Xingbao couldn't believe his ears. Suddenly, someone yelled that there were intruders. The monsters had finally arrived, and these guys are what we call orcs in games. There were 2 orcs. Labu, a level 1 orc, archer, and a level 1 orc warrior named Kabu. Labu was worried because they didn't have a healer. Kabu told her it was fine since these were low-level mobs. Plus, dungeon monsters are usually pretty dumb. Their lines and movements are all just fixed patterns anyway. A level 1 little mushroom attacked them, but it was easily taken out. That proved Kabu's point. Labu realized they could totally speedrun this dungeon again. More little mushrooms charged in recklessly. Kabu cut them into pieces. Xingbao watched them. He wondered why the mushroom men just charged straight ahead like that. He asked if they didn't know how to run, if they couldn't win. His friend explained that they were non-playable characters. They just followed their programming, unlike players who actually had free will. He asked if those 2 orcs were players since he thought players were usually humans. The mushroom answered that he was just an NPC with a few extra lines of exposition. So that was all he knew. Their conversation was cut short as something nearly hit him. It was an arrow. The orc archer suddenly targeted them. Xingbao immediately started running away, but his friend just stood there. He yelled at him to get moving. But then he noticed the guy didn't move at all. He completely froze. Xingbao rushed back, grabbed him, and told him to run. But the mushroom calmly replied that fleeing wasn't part of the mushroom men's programming at all. Xingbao stretched out his hand and told his friend to take it. He grabbed the mushroom's hand, and instantly a data anomaly warning was triggered. The system kept warning them non-stop. But he didn't care about the programming or the glitch. For the first time, the mushroom felt something. He was touched by his actions. Meanwhile, Xingbao only had one thing on his mind: survival. This left the orcs totally confused since mushroom men aren't supposed to run away. Kabu frowned, assuming it was a bug he should report to the admins later. Even so, Labu wasn't letting them escape. Kabu logged out first to submit the form, casually warning her not to die, but she just laughed. There was no way she'd die in a place like this. Xingbao scrambled to find anything he could use as a weapon, but his friends stopped him. There was nothing. Mushroom men were literally programmed to be completely unarmed and defenseless. Then Xingbao noticed something. A treasure chest. If they got lucky, there might be a weapon inside, but the other mushrooms shut that idea down. Those chests were for players only. NPCs weren't even allowed to open them. He tried to explain why it was impossible, but Xingbao tried anyway. Suddenly, a flood of data anomaly warnings exploded in his head. Against all odds, it worked. He actually popped the chest open. The mushroom beside him just stared in total shock. The old Xingbao would never have done this. He couldn't wrap his head around how his friend had changed so much. Xingbo shouted that there was actually some great loot inside. Suddenly, an arrow zipped straight toward them. The other mushroom didn't know why he moved. His kind wasn't programmed to protect their teammates, but he did it anyway. He lunged in front of Xingbao, blocking the arrow and refusing to let anyone hurt his friend. Xingbao froze as blood sprayed everywhere. That arrow pierced right through his mushroom friend's chest. Before he could even react, a second arrow was already airborne. His friend collapsed onto the cold ground. Something inside Xingbao finally snapped. He swatted the incoming arrow away. Up on the cliff, Lebu watched everything. She was stunned. A low-level mushroom monster just deflected her arrow. And it even opened a treasure chest meant only 4 players. Right then, she realized this wasn't just a bug, this was serious. Elsewhere, outside the dungeon, Kabu reported what they found. A man in a robe listened and replied that he understood the situation. Kabu wondered how long these dungeons had been active, and why there were still glitches everywhere. The hooded figure explained that because the dungeons had been running so long, maintenance oversights were bound to happen. He added that it wasn't surprising for little bugs to pop up here and there. He explained that after defeating the human coalition, the Great Lich feared the heroes would cause trouble with nothing to do. So, he designed the entire dungeon system strictly for their entertainment. Since then, those heroes have entered these dungeons as players to grind monsters, farm resources, and level up just to pass the time. If any players found a bug, they would simply submit it to the next, who acted as the admins and then wait for them to fix the problem. Back in the dungeon, Lebu decided to fix the glitch herself. She wasn't about to wait for the admins. She unleashed another arrow, but Xingbo anticipated it. He sliced it with his knife. He was surprised by his own agility and realized that the Mushroom Man's base stats were actually pretty decent. More arrows came flying at him. He parried every single one. However, he realized it wasn't easy to close the distance while under fire with these short mushroom legs. He wondered if there was anything he could use to block the arrows. Then he spotted the empty treasure chest nearby and cut it right open. As the next arrow approached, he used the lid as a shield. Lebu wondered how a mere mushroom man knew how to use a chest lid like that. His behavior was getting stranger by the second. She kept raining arrows down on him, but that treasure chest cover blocked them all. To her, he moved exactly like a player. She was caught off guard when he suddenly lunged toward her and sliced her body in half as he descended. Her bow shattered in the process. She collapsed into a pool of her own blood. Suddenly, a notification popped up, congratulating him on getting first blood. With that, he unlocked a Mushroom Man racial talent called Mycelial Network. Through this, he could link with minions, transmit info and spores, and even share skills and experience. Once that shared experience filled up, he could level up. He also unlocked another talent called Plant Mushroom. With this, he could plant himself or his teammates into enemy corpses or nutrient-rich areas too. Absorb nutrients and restore HP. After full absorption, he could even acquire the enemy's class and skills. On top of that, he gained Shroom Form Switch, allowing him to swap between his mushroom body and a reshaped form. He didn't expect a system, but after being reborn as a Mushroom Man, nothing seemed surprising anymore. He activated the skill, Plant Mushroom. He planted his foot on the orc's chest and started to absorb it. It felt absolutely amazing. Until he suddenly remembered something. He glanced up toward the cliff. She had taken an arrow for him, so now it was his turn to save her. He triggered the plant mushroom skill again. A bright glow washed over the entire area. Tiny sprouts started pushing out of the corpse. Then a leg began taking shape. Gradually, the human form took shape until it finally turned into a woman. Once it finished, she stood tall. Xingbao was so shocked he actually got a nosebleed. A beautiful woman appeared, and a status window followed. She was a level 2 mushroom man, archer guard, rank archer class, with agility as her primary stat. Her racial talent, mushroom man, let her extend fungal threads after taking damage to absorb nutrients from fallen enemies and heal herself. During this process, she could even steal enemy skills and racial traits. She had already taken the orc's berserk talent, which boosted her damage by 30% for 20 seconds with a 5-minute. On top of that, she was a ranged combat specialist with the parasitic spore bullet skill. This allowed her to fire spores into enemies to drain their nutrients secretly, restoring her own health in the process. This woman was now his loyal subordinate. She called him Chief and asked for a name. A notification popped up saying he had grown his first mushroom subordinate and had to name her. He wondered if mushroom men were always nameless, then paused to think of the perfect name. Finally, he decided to call her Cyfeng. She acknowledged the command and declared her name was Cyfeng. Then, she asked which instance realm they were going to clear next. Confused, he reminded her that they were just monsters, simple, non-playable characters. He declared their top priority was killing the remaining player. Soon, nothing but Labu's bones remained on the ground. Another orc stepped on them. Kabu was stunned that Labu died to such a trashy monster. He knew a normal level 1 mushroom man could never pull off something like that. Then it hit him, this monster had to be a rare elite. Now the trip felt worth it. Rare elites always dropped amazing loot. If luck was on his side and he scored some blue gear, he could make a fortune. He activated his orc charge and rushed straight toward Xingbao. But his attack was parried. He even caught a scratch on the thigh. Xingbao realized this warrior was tougher than the archer. A single slash had barely done any real damage. The enraged orc cursed the mushroom man, admitting he was surprised the creature had actually managed to hurt him. Unexpectedly, Xingbao turned and started running. And then he slammed the door behind him. On the other side was a bridge. Naturally, Kabu chased after him, smashing through the wooden door in the process. But then he stopped. The mushroom man was just standing there, no movement, no running. Kabu frowned. Why was it just standing still like that? A sense of unease crept in. It felt like a trap, but he reassured himself that no matter what, it was still just an NPC. Suddenly, the mushroom man flipped him off with its middle finger. Naturally, Kabu was furious at being mocked like that. He roared that he would chop the mushroom man into paste. He stepped onto the wooden bridge, but his weight made the thing wobble. He raised his weapon and prepared to strike but then his foot crashed right through the planks. The bridge started buckling before the whole thing just collapsed right under him. He plummeted straight into the water below. He spat curses at that trash mushroom monster, screaming it was a setup. Xingbao noted the orc had dropped his gear in a panic, and he was basically stuck in the deep water now. He whipped a knife at him, but it just grazed Kabu's shoulder. Kabu laughed. A slow, unarmed weakling wasn't going to do any real damage. Then, out of nowhere, an arrow ripped through the side of his neck. Just moments ago, the orc was mocking everyone, totally clueless that a shot was speeding for him. The arrow connected, tearing through his throat and sending a spray of blood and water everywhere. As it hit, he spun around, yelling to find out who dared sneak attack him. But before he could even blink, a second arrow struck his head. Just like that, he sank beneath the water. Cyfen's orc berserk status effect faded, and the orc warrior was finally eliminated. They hauled the body onto the beach so Xingbao could do his thing. He used his ability and absorbed it all, and unlocked the power to change his appearance. Smoke filled the air. Once it cleared, he was standing there in human form. Cyfeng just stared, shocked to see something dangling between his legs. Xingbao panicked. He realized it was just the axe handle. For a second, he thought he was naked and exposed. A status window popped up. He was now Mushroom Man Chief. Yang Jun. Rank Chief. Class: Warrior Blue. Strength was his main stat. At level 2, his mycelium talent let him extend fungal roots when hurt to absorb nutrients from bodies and heal himself, stealing enemy skills in the process. He kept the Orc Berserk talent, giving him a 30% damage boost for 20 seconds, making him a beast in close combat. Another alert appeared. Plant mushroom upgraded. Now he can plant spores into corpses to grow soulless shroom minions. They share experience with him and can be combined. Current limit of 2. He also grabbed 2 magic pouches, small bags that can store bulky gear, like weapons. He asked how they were supposed to get out. She explained this was the mushroom dungeon's bottom floor, and the only way out was to fight up, floor by floor. Then he asked why those level 1 orc players could just jump in. She explained that players have perks and can choose to start at the easiest dungeon levels. He wondered how she knew all that. And she said she'd eavesdropped on player chats back when she was just an NPC. That settled it. They were going to fight their way out, one level at a time. They kept moving forward until they hit a fork in the path. He asked where each way went. Left led to the level 1 slime floor, while the right path went to the graveyard. He told her to go grind on the slime floor, while he went to check out the graveyard. When she asked why, he just grinned. It might be a cemetery now, but soon it would be their home base. Along the way, he grabbed some old rags and threw them on. As he got closer, the smell really hit him. Even from a distance, the stench was absolutely overwhelming. This was the dump site for everything: trash, bodies, and who knows what else. He finally made it. Even with the old remains, he could still feel the lingering nutrients inside. He spotted materials in the dirt, mostly leftover potion residue. Even a ripped magic book. With one slot open and plenty of food, he decided to grow another minion and absorbed it all. A massive gust of wind whipped through the graveyard. Then, something emerged. A mushroom with a flaming head, a level 2. Fire was its main stat. It had pyroblast for explosive fire attacks and blazing sprint, which boosted its speed by 50%. It looked pretty intimidating, even if it was on the small side. Then he noticed some strange lights. His eyes widened. Lightning suddenly shot right at him. He reacted fast and leapt away. Once he landed safely, he spun around to find the source. A level 2 graveyard dominator attacked a weird lightning snail. He realized the monster fed on humus, making it a competitor for the mushroom men's ecological niche. John decided it was time to let Pyroshroom show its true power. He commanded it to use pure. A massive fireball surged toward the lightning snail. It slammed right into the electricity. The impact triggered a massive explosion. Flames quickly engulfed the lightning snail, but it fought back. It unleashed bolts of lightning. Pyroshroom had to use blazing sprint to escape. John saw that the snail moved at a crawl, a clear weakness he could exploit. Pyroshroom blasted more flames out. And on contact, another explosion went off. The smoke and dust finally cleared. It revealed one very roasted lightning snail. Pyroshroom gave John a happy wave. John told him to stop messing around and check if the enemy was actually dead. Pyroshroom flashed an OK sign. Suddenly, its head went flying. The snail had crawled out of its shell. It was still freaking alive and standing on 2 legs. John attacked immediately. The snail mocked him, saying he'd never hit it. It darted behind him. Then their attacks collided. The lightning snail joked that he was slow as a snail. John realized that without the shell, this creature moved like actual lightning. He watched it zip around at an incredible speed. He had to admit, losing that shell made it much lighter. It lunged toward him once more. John saw the attack coming. He ducked at the last second, revealing the fireball Pyroshroom had ready. The fireball screamed straight at the snail. At the very last second, the snail dodged. More fireballs came raining down. But it just kept laughing, saying they couldn't hit anything. John just watched. The lightning snail laughed, mocking him for missing, despite being the same level. John calmly replied that he hadn't missed anything. He wasn't aiming for the snail at all. That's when the ceiling rocks came crashing down. The lightning snail finally understood his whole strategy. It was still confident they'd miss, but then John triggered Orc Berserk and Orc Charge. Total chaos broke out. The lightning snail realized John was using the heavy smoke for cover. It thought it could dodge everything, but then Pyroshroom suddenly showed up. At the exact same time, John rushed in from behind. It never expected him to stack surprise attacks like that, leaving it completely defenseless. The impact was absolutely brutal. Its body slammed into the wall and burst, leaving only blood behind. John placed his hand over the remains, and a notification appeared. The electric snail was destroyed, boosting his nutrients and unlocking Shroom Soldier spores. He reached level 3, and can now grow 3 Shroom Soldiers. He also learned a new skill called Etherealize, which lets his soldiers absorb nutrients and power up. He planted a brand new Shroom Soldier, called Volt Shroom. This fast unit converts nutrients into electricity, to shock enemies. It has high electric stats, and can enter an ethereal state to evade and strike. With a level 3 Volt Shroom, and a level 2 Pyro Shroom, his team was growing. He ordered a quick cleanup, officially claiming this spot as their base camp. He paused, wondering how Cyfeng was doing. It had been way too long since he gained any experience points, which meant she might be facing some trouble. Meanwhile, Cyfeng crushed multiple. Suddenly, a monster appeared, and asked if she was the one using his underlings for target practice. This was the level 2 Slime King. It mentioned she looked strangely familiar, like he had seen her somewhere before. Before it could even finish speaking, it got hit. Annoyed, it complained about being interrupted, and called her extremely rude. He was shocked to see another attack coming his way. Several arrows struck him directly, but it claimed that poking holes was useless, and threw a heavy punch at Cyfeng. The impact was incredibly strong. The Slime King bragged that he wasn't like his minions. His body was so malleable that physical attacks only made him lose some fluid. He added that he could just keep absorbing moisture from the ground, making physical attacks totally useless. He told Cyfeng to just die. He was just about to land a heavy punch. Cyfeng didn't even flinch. To its surprise, its arm exploded. It was confused, wondering why its entire body was starting to collapse. Then, it noticed mushrooms were growing all over its body. A ton of them were spreading quickly across its back. Even the groundwater beneath its feet was being drained dry by the mushrooms. It wondered exactly when these mushrooms began parasitizing its body. Then it realized the parasitic spores must have been on those arrowheads the whole time. Recognition finally hit, and it remembered her as that pink-capped mushroom man. Its body eventually dissolved, leaving a single horn behind. Cyfeng grabbed the devoured Minotaur horn loot. This unlocked a new ability for John to create bowstrings and arrows using his own mycelial, capable of firing magic skills. She tucked the Minotaur horn into her magic pouch and absorbed nutrients from a slime corpse. giving her a massive experience point boost. John felt the impact too. A notification announced that Cyfeng reached level 4, unlocking mycelial arc to create bowstrings and arrows using her own mycelium, which lets her fire magic skills. Another notice revealed that John also leveled up to level 4, unlocking 4 This skill lets mushrooms and his mycelial network resonate, gathering vital area information and greatly improving coordination through the network. Cyfeng finally arrived at the graveyard and saw the shrooms finishing the cleanup. She came to help clean after finishing her task, but didn't expect the new shroom soldiers to have cleared the place already. He mentioned it was fine, since the area wasn't that big anyway. He checked out the Minotaur horn, noting the material was top tier. It was way better than that broken cleaver from before, or even the level 1 orc player's axe. Still, he wished they had a craftsman around to actually turn the loot into a proper weapon. She asked if they should go hunt for one, and he replied that his new skill was perfect for the job. He suggested they scout for any players or corpses nearby that might have craftsman skills. He spread his mycelial network out wide. Probe shrooms sprouted all across the field. Through them, he sensed players fighting nearby. 3 monsters cornered a man, telling him he had nowhere to run. They wanted him back to forge weapons for them. He refused. He wasn't about to become a slave while they forced his clansmen to work until they died from exhaustion. The blue orc monster told him to die instead. Just like that, the craftsman was gone. Watching through his probe, Shroom Jun realized he was way too late. She asked why everything was dark. He explained she would be able to see once she extended her mycelium and connected to the network. She did exactly what he said. Within seconds, the world finally came into focus. Since he couldn't save the living, he'd settle for saving the dead. Death, he figured, was just another way of existing. He sent spores through the network, while Pyroshroom and Voltshroom were busy fighting over a bag of trash. Then, Pareshroom vanished instantly. A bright red light erupted from where the craftsman's body lay. It revealed a level 4, Pureshroom dwarf craftsman. Strength was his primary stat, and his fire affinity gave him heavy resistance to heat. As a dwarf shroom, he possessed traditional crafting skills, along with high resistance to toxins and physical attacks. Since he was a craftsman, he specialized in forging. With the blessing of fire, his efficiency was even greater. He also possessed a special skill called Cannon Mycelium, which released a controllable chain of fire. This torch chain could link to the network for shared vision, while absorbing nutrients to boost his damage. When he finally woke up, he was completely confused. Through a small shroom, Jun spoke to him. He explained that he'd resurrected him as one of his shroom soldiers, naming him Firehammer. Started to argue, but Jun cut him off. He explained that his probe scouts were already tracking those trolls. One troll told the boss that if the dwarf slaves kept dying from exhaustion, the work would eventually stop. The boss snapped that he was an idiot. The level 3 underboss explained that if the slaves died, they'd just raid the dungeon for more. He added that dwarves weren't extinct yet, since plenty were still hiding in the shadows. Then, he suddenly sensed something was wrong. He demanded to know why mushroom men were here when their nest was nearby. One guessed it was just a wandering elite monster, having no clue how it ended up there. Another shouted it was their lucky day. Thrilled with the unexpected loot, he let his spear fly. The mushroom man just stood there. He pulled out a massive hammer and hurled it right at them. They saw it coming, though. A loud explosion followed when the hammer hit the ground. The troll barely dodged the impact at the last second. To his shock, the hammer started to float. It smashed him before he could move. They were stunned. The hammer could actually track its own targets. He couldn't wrap his head around a level 3 elite having such insane gear. The hammer took flight again. One troll tried blocking it with his sword. he managed to shove it away. It zipped upward. The hammer got stuck on top of a spike. Firehammer used it for leverage, swinging a flaming rope to catch it while sprinting at full speed. Then he lunged at the trolls. A troll prepared to throw his spear, but mycelium vines suddenly wrapped around his hand. That was followed by mycelial ignition, causing his hand to explode instantly. Firehammer locked on to the next target. He hopped onto its back, slamming its face into the dirt. He spotted another troll swinging a heavy morning star. But he landed a punch first. The blow sent the troll flying into the mountainside. Firehammer pulled the hammer back to him. The troll was stunned when he smashed those wooden pillars and triggered a massive cave-in. Even after taking some hits, the troll felt confident. He figured he could still dodge the next blow. Firehammer unleashed his firehammer ignition. His hammer was completely covered in flames. Next, he activated Flying Hammer, Fire Rain. The troll knew right then, there was no dodging it. When it slammed down, the flames triggered a massive chain of explosions. The system sent a notification. The giant deer player was officially eliminated. A notification announced that Craftsman Firehammer reached level 5. He unlocked a new skill called Scrap Recovery, allowing him to smash debris left by the hammer and recover any usable parts. Another notice revealed that John reached level 5 and unlocked a new item bundle called Foil. It is a rare and durable work hoop that can be assigned to subordinates to help with daily tasks, like forging, gathering, and cultivation. In emergencies, it can also be used as a Jaeger. Finally, Cyfeng also hit level 5 and unlocked Instant Back, a skill allowing her to teleport directly to an arrow she fired through an arrow thread. John told him he did a great job. He sent over the coordinates and told them to come find him. Moments later, they met up, and Firehammer hesitantly asked if his chief was actually human. John explained that a mushroom man's reshaped form depends on their race from their previous life. Since he was human before, he looks human now. He added that Cyfeng was also human before the Archmage turned her, so her appearance stayed human too. By that same logic, he concluded that Firehammer was likely in the same boat. He changed the subject and asked if Firehammer could use that horn to forge some new weapons. Firehammer agreed the horn was solid material. However, he warned they still needed extra parts, and it did not look like there were any around. John replied that, since this was the Great Graveyard, more materials would probably show up soon enough. He heard a strange noise up above. Not long after, a bunch of weapons started getting dumped through the hole. They picked up a discarded magic iron bracelet from the pile. Firehammer used his salvage hammer to start reforging it. He tossed it into the furnace. Apparently, this wasted gear is turning back into magic iron ore. On top of that, a level 5 farm shroom helped him out. Firehammer put his forging hammer to work again. He told the chief the weapons were finished. He even used scrap materials to make him pants and shoes. He examined the exquisite double-edged sword and realized it was way better than that crude orc axe. It was a solid weapon. While it had low magic power, the user could infuse mana to cast spells from the blade. Since the material was common, there was a risk of damage if high-intensity spells were used for too long. Cyfeng held an exquisite mycelial bow. It also had low magic power. The user could use their own mycelium as a bowstring to channel spells into arrows. However, if she fired enchanted arrows with very high intensity, there was a real risk of damaging the bow itself. Firehammer told him he had sewn a magic pouch into his clothing. Now, it was way easier for him to grab his weapons. Cyfeng asked where they were headed next. He answered that they were going to punch right through the floor. Over the past few days, he used the Mycelial Network to scout. The Great Graveyard is at the bottom. If they went up the garbage chute, they would hit one-way barriers that only allowed downward movement. However, every floor has a passage leading to the next level. If they want to go up, The best way is to fight through every floor. Besides, they couldn't just let others live peacefully in their territory. Cyfeng asked if they were bringing Firehammer, since one more shroom meant more strength. She felt Firehammer wasn't just good at forging, but was even more ruthless in a fight. However, someone had to guard their home. They couldn't just leave and return to find it gone. Still, through the shared Mycelial Network, Firehammer would gain experience whenever they killed monsters. He stepped on something and felt a force. A wall suddenly dropped down, separating him from Cyfeng. He wondered if it was a trap hidden inside magic sigils. Now he understood why the probe shroom couldn't detect it. He laughed and said that with the wall's thickness, all he needed was one punch. He wrapped flame mycelium around his fist to prep a fire attribute, explosive attack. He punched it, but instead of breaking it, he was blasted backward. A magic circle appeared, right where he struck. He realized the trap wall was reinforced with a magic array. Trying to break through it wouldn't work. He added that he and Cyfeng would have to take different paths. Since that was the case, our main character turned around. The path ahead led into the Instance Realm's slimy corridor. After they were separated, the terrain changed. He could see many eyes watching from the dark entrance. He watched carefully, and realized it was a giant snail nest. One snail recognized him as the one who killed their brother in the great graveyard. He ordered the others to take him down. They blasted him with lightning, but John planted his Voltshroom. That electric surge slammed right into the floor. Those snails thought they finally nailed him and got their revenge. Suddenly, one of them was sliced clean, in half. It happened again and again. June was moving insanely fast. The snails had to ditch their shells, just to keep up. They wanted to show him how terrifying the shellless tribe could be, but then they felt the mycelium. In a heartbeat, John had every single one trapped. He then triggered the mycelial blast. Explosions went off everywhere, and his experience points started climbing really fast. Seconds later, he made it to the door and headed inside. This had to be the boss room. Suddenly, he felt something heavy leap onto his back. Luckily, he managed to dodge it. He spotted a massive shell. It spun right at him. He parried with his blade, but it just kept spinning. The impact sent him flying into the air. That's when he whipped out his mycelium. It hooked onto that spinning shell. Then he channeled lightning through the spores. A massive explosion followed. Thick smoke filled the whole room. The level 5 Snail King appeared. It was a giant snail on 2 legs, wearing armor and holding a sword. John saw a second phase coming and thought it was cool. Meanwhile, Cyfeng sketched June and her mushroom form on the floor. She realized that, since the wall separated them, there wasn't a single mob left on her side, but she was still gaining experience shared from the chief's side. They were clearly in the middle of a crazy boss fight, and she really wanted to get back in there and help. Back to our main character. The steel kept clashing as John stayed locked in a duel with the Snail King. He parried the blow and countered instantly, but the Snail King slipped away. Then it tucked into its shell, and from a small opening, it blasted water beams. John knew right away it was water-type magic. He fired his mycelium and anchored it firmly to the wall. Pulling himself up, he wasn't sure what that liquid was, so he stayed careful and prioritized dodging. As soon as it hit, his mycelium slipped. He froze as the grip failed, sending him crashing straight down into the wet puddle. And the next attack followed immediately. Luckily, his reflexes kicked in just enough to block it, but the force still shoved him back. The floor was way too slippery to even keep his balance. He quickly realized the ceiling might be coated in that same fluid, which explained why his mycelium failed him earlier. The Snail King declared this was his home turf, and John didn't stand a chance of winning. The next heavy strike forced John to drop his sword. The Snail King rolled into a ball again, and moved in to crush him. Water burst out like a fountain from the impact. Seeing the mycelium, the Snail King asked if he was a mushroom man. He then mocked John for trying to compete, calling him nothing more than a bottom feeder. Electricity surged through John's hands as he reached into the water. The massive blast sent the Snail King flying away from him. The current spread quickly through the water, but the Snail King's aura crushed it instantly. John didn't expect that. The Snail King scoffed, saying that since John already used that move once, he wouldn't fall for it again. John tried attacking using the water's conductivity, but the king found it amusing. He declared this his home turf. Since he controlled the water surface, he could increase electrical resistance and weaken any incoming shock. John admitted he had some control over water, but added that dodging well isn't as good as standing in the right place. That made the king glance down. There was mycelium in the water. The king froze, wondering when the entire area beneath him had been covered. Then he realized he had already walked straight into the trap. But the Snail King wasn't worried. He believed he could still control the water's resistance and weaken any electric attack. John didn't buy it. He activated Ignite. The Snail King stayed arrogant until he saw the flames. The fire surged instantly and swallowed him whole. When the flames died down, only a charred body remained. Before turning to ash, the Snail King asked why he suddenly switched to fire. He muttered that John didn't fight by the rules. A system window appeared, showing that John and his subordinates had officially reached level 5. They could now generate mycelium wrappers on the fly, allowing them to compress gear and store it inside their bodies. He learned his probe. Shroom now functioned as a network download terminal. He could also cultivate Boom Shroom Guards, a heavy unit for both melee and ranged combat. These could attach to enemies or weapons and explode, dealing massive damage and leaving behind magical effects. The exact damage depended on the attribute used during cultivation. For example, adding fire points triggered explosions that dealt area damage and ignited targets. The explosion's strength scaled with the minion's attributes, and could be triggered manually by John himself. He also got a notification that Cyfeng learned the core skill Spore Canister. It required building Spore Rage through normal attacks and skills. Once maxed, she could fire a powerful arrow that scattered spore bombs over a wide area, causing massive explosions. He was also told that Firehammer learned the core skill Reckless Smelting. This also required building Spore Rage through combat. Once maxed, he could release it through his hammer to rapidly purify materials and break down impurities on contact. He was notified that the isolation seal wall had been lifted. He noticed an unfamiliar human scent coming from beneath a pile of rocks. He called Firehammer over to check it out. Firehammer punched through the wall and reached him. There were piles of black rocks. John asked if he knew what they were. Firehammer replied they were black rod stones, formed over time from compressed magic waste and humus. John asked if they were valuable. Firehammer said garbage plus garbage was still garbage. No normal alchemist or blacksmith would care about that kind of material. But that was before he became a mushroom man. Now, he declared it was good stuff. The trace amounts of magical residue once hard to extract were easy now. He activated his mycelial extraction skill. He said it was as simple as flipping his hand. The extraction finished, revealing a magic silverstone fragment. He added that with this method, he could even extract epic tier mana fragments. These materials were highly valuable to players, and John was surprised. Then he wondered if the piece was too small to make anything useful out of it. Firehammer pointed out there was still a whole pile left. He asked for some time to dig out more from below. John agreed and left the cave to him. Firehammer began extracting the mana fragments. A moment later, he obtained several items. A magic iron stone fragment, an aluminum stone fragment, a silver stone fragment, a copper stone fragment, and a magic gold stone fragment. Suddenly, the ground shook. John told him to dig all he wanted but not collapse the cave. Firehammer replied that it wasn't him. A massive worm monster with rows of razor teeth was behind this. One shroom charged ahead, but June snatched it right out of the air. June asked where it thought it was going since it wasn't time to kill yet. He told the little guy to stay back and run errands for Firehammer instead. He gave Cyfeng the signal, and she agreed. He mentioned the new shroom soldiers were finally linked to the Mycelial Network, so she could call for backup whenever she needed. Meanwhile, the probe mushroom sensed something nearby. It reported the enemy was about to smash through the black rock cave ceiling. They couldn't let it inside, so June ordered them to distract the beast and lure the whole fight into the corridor instead. The probe shroom got the message and taunted the worm. This made the monster let out a massive roar. It started heading in a different direction. June asked Firehammer what kind of bug this was, noting it seemed to be charging them with a clear target. Based on the sound, Firehammer guessed it was a scavenger black bug. It had a natural hunger for humus, making it a fierce rival for the snail tribe. He added that he would make the battle easier once his setup was finally ready. Right then, Cyfeng launched an attack on the scavenger black bug. It was knocked back. She kept slashing at its body until her rage meter was totally full. She quickly backed away. All that slashing only left a shallow scratch. She said its shell was incredibly tough, and it even chipped the chief's blade during the exchange. The probe shroom told her the new gear Firehammer made was ready. She could download it straight from the Mycelial Network, and the process started immediately. 6% loaded. Suddenly, it hit 86%. The scavenger black bug lunged toward her. Luckily, the download finished, and she unlocked the magic silver arrow. She gathered energy around her, aiming straight for the black bug's mouth. She unleashed a fully charged Shatter-Edge Roar arrow. She let it fly. She had to leap back as the scavenger black bug came charging right at her. She kept her distance. The arrow got stuck in the bug's mouth, and mushrooms started sprouting deep inside it. The mushrooms began to glow. The scavenger black bug closed in on her position. Suddenly, its body started exploding from the inside out. Nothing but ashes remained. But the probe mushroom warned her not to relax yet. There was more coming. It reported that distant probes had already spotted another black bug heading right for them. But she was already out of breath. June asked through the probe if her stamina was low, telling her to quickly turn those monster corpses into humus to restore HP. He also suggested using the new shroom soldiers to hold the line. A shroom was summoned. It was a level 6 boom shroom guard. She saw only 2 appeared. June explained that the max squad size was 6, and they were already at the limit. She explained that, not counting the Volt shroom, the roster included the chief, Firehammer, a worker shroom, and 2 boom shrooms. That made 6. With the probe shroom, they were over the limit. The probe shroom replied that it didn't take up a slot because it was part of the network, like an off-roster unit. The black bug appeared. The probe shroom watched the creature, noting that since it kept its mouth clamped shut, it was probably scared of getting blasted in the face again. A boom shroom coated its weapon in hot fire. Then, it hurled it at the black bug, creating a massive explosion. The black bug was clearly hurting. The other boom shroom attacked with its sword. It struck the black bug right on its upper body and shoved it away. Watching it fall down, Cyfeng wondered if the new shroom soldier was a strength type after it sent that massive black bug flying with one hit. The boom shrooms regrouped. One of them closed in on the bug to rip its spear free, while the other one rushed in and tossed a self-destructing flying sword into its open mouth. The black bug's upper body exploded as the system window flashed. Our main character's experience points climbed, and the Mushroom Man tribe reached level 7. He learned he unlocked the chief exclusive skill, Lone Sovereign. For every subordinate missing from his side, whether fallen or just not deployed, his stats would jump by 10%, up to a maximum of 100%. Probe shrooms no longer needed to vibrate their caps to fly, they could now levitate freely. He could also grow a new shroom soldier, the Archer Shroom. This ranged unit fights with a short blade up close and fires split arrows with different attributes. It can even use a spore umbrella to glide through the air. When placed near Cyfeng, it gets a troop inspiration effect, boosting all stats by 10%. On top of that, he could cultivate the tunneling a worker unit that absorbed the burrowing ability of the black scavenger bug. It could drill through mountains and dig tunnels to reshape the cave system. When deployed near Firehammer, it gains a captain inspiration effect, boosting work efficiency by 10%. Near Firehammer, it gets a captain inspiration effect, boosting work efficiency 10%. Standing by Firehammer grants a captain inspiration bonus, raising work efficiency 10%. Placed next to Firehammer, it gains captain inspiration, increasing work speed by 10%. With Firehammer nearby, the captain inspiration effect increases work efficiency by 10%.